Jacksonville, Florida. August 2nd, 2017. The humid summer air presses down on the parking lot outside Bonefish Grill. It's just another Wednesday night, or so it seems. But the restaurant's security camera tells a different story. At 6 p.m., a silver Chevy Malibu sits parked, shaking violently as if caught in a silent struggle. Minutes pass. The driver's side door opens. A tall man steps out, his movements deliberate but tense. He glances around, then walks over to a white Kia. He stoops, draws something sharp, and slices into the tire, quietly, methodically, before disappearing into the night. Inside that white Kia is Savannah Gold's purse and ID, but Savannah herself, she's gone. At 6:11 p.m., Savannah's father receives a text. The message is hurried, packed with spelling errors. "I'm leaving with my boyfriend for a while." Moments later, Savannah's brother receives a similar text. But something feels off. The words aren't quite right. The tone is nothing like Savannah's. If Savannah didn't write those messages, who did? As the hours tick by and Savannah fails to return home, her family's unease grows into dread. Friends and co-workers launch a frantic search. Flyers go up. The story spreads through the neighborhood. But the evidence, her abandoned car, the slashed tire, the strange messages, raises more questions than answers. How does a young woman vanish from a crowded parking lot without a trace? If this was a simple runaway, why the signs of violence? And if not, what really happened in those crucial minutes behind Bonefish Grill? Savannah Gold. The girl everyone loved. Before her name appeared on missing person flyers, Savannah Gold was simply Savannah, a 21-year-old waitress with a gentle spirit and a bright future. Petite with long blonde hair and striking blue eyes, Savannah looked younger than her years. But behind that soft appearance was a young woman shaped by adversity and love. She'd earned a scholarship to the prestigious Savannah College of Art and Design. It was the kind of opportunity most young artists dream of. Yet Savannah made a decision that spoke volumes about her priorities. She turned it down. Her mother, Sherry, was fighting stage 4 cancer. Rather than leaving home for college, Savannah stayed in Jacksonville to help care for her. Day in, day out, she balanced work with her mother's appointments and treatments, never once complaining. Those who knew Savannah describe her as dedicated, compassionate, and selfless. Co-workers at Bonefish Grill remember her always willing to pick up an extra shift, offer a word of encouragement, or stay late to help clean up after a busy night. She had a way of making everyone, customers and staff alike, feel seen and valued. Her world was small but full: home, work, and the hospital. She was close to her father and older brother, always letting them know her schedule, especially if she was working late. The Bonefish Grill, a familiar spot on San Jose Boulevard, was seen as a safe place. The staff felt like family. Savannah had been serving there for nearly 2 years. But sometimes, the places we trust the most hold secrets. For Savannah, her life revolved around caring for others, her family, her friends, even her customers. No one could have guessed how those very connections would become threads in a much darker tapestry. Cracks beneath the surface. The secret relationship. On the surface, Savannah Gold's life seemed defined by routine, family, work, caregiving. But beneath the everyday, a series of hidden tensions had begun to simmer. The most significant? A secret relationship that, if discovered, could jeopardize everything. Savannah had been quietly involved with Lee Rodart, a 28-year-old kitchen manager at Bonefish Grill. Their relationship was complicated, on again and off again, and strictly forbidden by company policy. Lee was older, in a position of authority, and already known for his volatile temperament. Inside the close-knit restaurant, their connection had to stay under wraps, not just for Savannah's sake, but to protect Lee's job and reputation. But secrets have a way of surfacing. In the weeks leading up to Savannah's disappearance, things between her and Lee had grown increasingly strained. Lee had rekindled a relationship with his ex-girlfriend, Chelsea. Rumors of jealousy, arguments, and mounting pressure to keep things quiet began to swirl. Friends would later recall seeing Savannah upset, sometimes anxious, during shifts, though she never confided exactly what was wrong. Then there were the warning signs. After Savannah vanished, her family received those bizarre, rushed texts, messages with strange spelling, sent minutes after she was last seen. The words claimed she was leaving with her boyfriend, but Savannah's tone was missing, replaced by something almost mechanical. And then there was her car. Left behind, tire slashed, purse and ID untouched inside. Was someone trying to stage a runaway? Or send a warning? As police and volunteers launched their search, Lee Rodart blended into the background, helping put up missing posters and joining in the calls for Savannah's return. To some, he seemed just another concerned coworker. But investigators knew better. Sometimes, those responsible for a crime insert themselves into the very effort to solve it, hoping to control the narrative and hide in plain sight. The night everything changed, a timeline unfolds. August 2nd, 2017, began like any other humid summer evening in Jacksonville. For Savannah Gold, it was just another workday. At 5:15 p.m., she left her family's home, dressed in her Bonefish Grill uniform, promising her parents she'd be home after her shift. But the routine was about to shatter. At approximately 5:30 p.m., surveillance cameras outside the Bonefish Grill captured Savannah's white Kia pulling into the parking lot. She didn't go straight inside. Instead, she crossed the lot to a silver Chevy Malibu where Lee Rodart was waiting. For about 15 minutes, the two sat together, speaking in hushed tones, no one else around to witness what was said. Then, just before 6 o'clock p.m., the security footage took a chilling turn. The Chevy Malibu began to shake violently, doors opening and closing, movements that suggested a heated struggle inside. Moments later, Lee Rodart stepped out, his posture tense. He moved over to Savannah's Kia, opened the door, and began rummaging around inside. Calmly, almost as if following a script, he reached down and slashed her front tire with a knife. Then, with practiced ease, he walked back to his car and drove away. Savannah was nowhere to be seen. At 6:11 p.m., Savannah's father received a hurried, misspelled text, claiming she was leaving town with her boyfriend. Her brother got a similar message minutes later. But Savannah's purse and identification were still in her car, untouched. There was no sign of a struggle in the parking lot, no evidence to suggest she had run away. By the time her family realized something was deeply wrong, precious hours had slipped away. The last person to see Savannah alive was Lee Rodart, yet his version of events was about to unravel. The investigation, unraveling lies, chasing the truth. In the immediate aftermath of Savannah's disappearance, Jacksonville police faced a puzzling scene. Her car, left abandoned in the Bonefish Grill parking lot, contained her purse, ID, and phone, a clear sign she hadn't planned to run away. The slashed tire, the hurried messages, the absence of any sign of struggle. Each detail pointed to something staged, something meant to mislead. Investigators began with the basics. Co-workers and community members quickly identified the silver Chevy Malibu seen on surveillance footage as belonging to Lee Rodart. Whispers about his secret relationship with Savannah surfaced, something management never officially acknowledged, but the staff quietly suspected. Security camera footage revealed the key sequence: Savannah and Lee meeting in the parking lot, the violent shaking of Lee's car, his movements after, and the suspicious act of slashing her tire. When detectives first interviewed Lee, his story shifted. At first, he claimed he hadn't seen Savannah that evening. Pressed further, he changed his story. Yes, she'd gotten into his car, but then left, getting into a green pickup with someone else. Yet the footage told another story, and soon Lee's fabrications began to collapse. As the pressure mounted, detectives presented Lee with the undeniable evidence: camera angles, timelines, and his own contradictory statements. Finally, confronted by the facts, Lee admitted to a struggle in his car. With the investigation closing in, he broke, confessing not only to the altercation, but also revealing the location where Savannah's body had been hidden. Search teams raced to the spot Lee described, a retention pond in the Club Duclay neighborhood, West Jacksonville. There, in the water, they discovered Savannah's remains, wrapped in plastic and tape. Forensic examination confirmed the worst: a broken hyoid bone, a telltale sign of strangulation. No drugs were found in her system, undermining Lee's later attempts to blame her death on substance use. Piece by piece, the investigation exposed the truth. Savannah hadn't run away. She'd been silenced, her story nearly erased, but for the persistence of her loved ones and the evidence she left behind. The turning point: breaking the silence. Every investigation has a moment when the tide shifts, when scattered clues converge, and the truth, long obscured, begins to surface. For Savannah Gold's family and investigators, that moment arrived in the interrogation room. Initially, Lee Rodart maintained a facade of innocence. He denied seeing Savannah, suggested she'd left with someone else, and stuck to a rehearsed story even as inconsistencies piled up. But evidence, relentless and impartial, has a way of wearing down even the most practiced lies. The surveillance footage was the first crack in Lee's defense. Detectives showed him the video: the heated encounter in his Chevy Malibu, the violent shaking, the slashed tire, and his calculated return to Savannah's car. Each frame chipped away at his narrative. When the video made his denials impossible, Lee's story changed again. He admitted there had been a struggle, then tried to paint it as a tragic accident, an impulsive act, not a premeditated one. But the autopsy revealed more than Lee had bargained for. The forensic evidence told a different story. Savannah's hyoid bone had been broken, a classic sign of manual strangulation, not an accident. Toxicology found no drugs in her system, contradicting Lee's desperate claim that she'd overdosed. Every fact pointed to a calculated act, not a chaotic mistake. In a final, chilling twist, Lee broke under pressure. He confessed to squeezing Savannah during their argument and revealed where he had hidden her body. The missing person case was transformed in an instant into a homicide. The details were harrowing: the tire slashed to prevent her escape, the body concealed in plastic and tape. Decisions made not in panic, but with cold intent. What began as an ordinary workday ended in tragedy, exposing how control, jealousy, and secrecy can escalate to violence, even in places we think are safe. Trial and sentencing, justice delayed but not denied. After Lee Rodart's confession, the Jacksonville community braced for answers and for justice. But the road to the courtroom would be anything but straightforward. The case wound through months of delays, complicated by the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. For Savannah's family, each passing day was a painful reminder of loss, but also a test of patience and resolve. As the facts came to light, the prosecution's case against Lee grew stronger. The video footage, the forensic evidence, and Lee's own changing stories painted a picture that was impossible to deny. Savannah's death was not an accident, nor was it the result of self-defense. The evidence showed intent, planning, and a clear effort to mislead investigators at every turn. Facing the weight of evidence and the prospect of a life sentence, Lee Rodart chose to avoid trial. In 2021, just before jury selection was set to begin, he accepted a plea agreement. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. In exchange, the state dropped other charges, but there would be no escape from accountability. The judge sentenced him to 40 years in prison, with credit for time served since his arrest in August 2017. Lee's attempts to justify his actions, claims of self-defense, of a momentary lapse, fell apart under scrutiny. The physical evidence and his own admissions left little doubt. Still, for Savannah's loved ones, the sentence was bittersweet. No amount of prison time could bring her back or erase the pain of her absence. The community, too, was left with questions. How could workplace dynamics and secret relationships be allowed to fester unchecked? Should the restaurant have done more to protect its staff? Yet, for the Gold family, the verdict brought a measure of closure and the knowledge that Savannah's story had finally been heard in court. Aftermath and lessons, the legacy of Savannah Gold. The end of Lee Rodart's trial did not mark the end of the pain for Savannah Gold's family. Her mother, Sherry, the reason Savannah stayed in Jacksonville instead of following her dreams, fought cancer for years after her daughter's passing, finally losing her battle in 2024. But before she died, Sherry and her family saw justice served. It was a bittersweet victory, shadowed by grief that never truly faded. Savannah's story left scars on those who knew her and sent ripples through the Jacksonville community. It raised uncomfortable questions about power imbalances in the workplace, the danger of secret relationships, and the warning signs too often ignored. Behind the closed doors of Bonefish Grill, Savannah's gentle nature had collided with a pattern of jealousy and control, a dynamic that escalated from secrecy to manipulation and ultimately to violence. The details are chilling, but they carry important lessons. When a young woman's property is threatened, her tire slashed, her messages manipulated, these are not just minor acts of mischief. They are red flags. The fake texts, the attempt to control the narrative, the quiet threats. Each step was a warning that something far worse could be coming. Had any one of these signs been acted on sooner, would the outcome have changed? Investigators stress the importance of acting quickly in missing persons cases, of not waiting the standard 24 hours, of checking surveillance footage right away, and of treating every detail seriously. Workplaces, too, must enforce clear boundaries and provide safe channels for reporting inappropriate relationships or power abuses. Savannah Gold's legacy is a solemn one, reminding us that the search for justice does not end with a verdict. It continues in the safeguards we build, in the vigilance we show, and in the courage to trust our instincts, especially when something just doesn't feel right. Savannah Gold's disappearance in a quiet Jacksonville parking lot shattered the illusion of safety for an entire community. Behind the surface of a devoted daughter and diligent worker lay a secret relationship, one that spiraled into control, violence, and tragedy. The investigation uncovered manipulation, staged evidence, and a chilling confession, exposing the deadly consequences of ignoring warning signs. In the aftermath, Savannah's family fought for justice and now urges others to recognize red flags and protect the vulnerable. Her legacy reminds us, every detail matters, and every instinct could be a lifeline. If you found Savannah's story as haunting as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow our channel for more unsolved mysteries and real-life cases. Let's honor Savannah's memory by staying vigilant and by looking out for those silent signals that could save a life.